Matt Machugrosso here, creator of Xenoplicity and the Q system that it runs on. Today's video is going to be kind of like a short little rant. Just kind of wanted to touch on some things that I'm kind of thinking about. You know, Xenoplicity, it fundamentally works differently than other games out there. And one of the biggest ways that it's different is that Xenoplicity doesn't require you to have a library shelf full of books to play one game. Another thing is that we keep it simple in the book. It's not overly sized in how big the book is. You know, Xenoplicity, here's a copy of it, comes in at 183 pages. 183 pages, it's under 200 pages, and it's got what you need to play the game. And I don't just mean the basics, I mean everything that you need to play this game is in this one book. That's 3 settings. That's fantasy, sci-fi, and post-apocalypse in one book. That is over 40 species in this book. That is rules for firearms and for melee and for archery, weapons in this book. All kinds of armors in this book. You've got rules for magic. You've got rules for miracles. You've got rules for psionics and bionics and exotic alien technologies. You've got rules in here for mass combat and vehicle combat and mounted combat. You've got rules in here for building cities, for having strongholds. You have rules in here for running companies. You've got rules in here for building vehicles and robots, all in one book that's under 200 pages. This book has all you need in it for your setting, for your character creation. It's got all the rules in here. Everything's included. And I'm not trying really to insult other game systems, but we're going to pick on a couple of them a little bit because they make good examples, okay? Look at my shelf here. Again, every game that I own, mostly, all of these games here that you can see on screen, I do play. And I like these games. Otherwise I wouldn't own them, okay? So let's take Zweihander, for instance. This is a great example. I enjoy playing this game, okay? But look at the size of this book. This book is 660 plus pages in size. It is extremely heavy. Now it's pretty, okay? Beautiful cover. Beautiful ribbon, okay? Illustration's great. But this is just a fantasy game. That's all this is. All this is a fantasy game. And it doesn't have rules in here for a lot of the things you're going to find rules in Xenoplicity for. And look at the size difference here. That's insane. This book to be this big, and it's not the only book. If you want to play the game and you want to play it with all the options, there are 2 more books that come with it. And there's probably more at this point, but there's 2 additional books that you need. If you want to, have everyone around the table playing the game, engaged with books, and you need this other one here if you want to even just have the full list of weapons in the game. They didn't even put all the weapons in the one book, okay? And here's I guess this is what I'm trying to say. This is why it makes it such a good example. Why do you need 600 plus pages for a fantasy game? Can you answer that? I can't, because I don't need this. When I play this game, okay, we use the character creation in it, and then this book never gets opened. Why? I'll tell you why. Because I refuse to flip through a 600-page book to look for a rule in the middle of the game. I'm not doing it. It's a ridiculously oversized book. It is bloated. It is just way overfilled with fluff and things that I don't need and I don't care about. And frankly, it's a pain in the butt to try to open this book up and use it. Okay? Now, is that the only game like that? Absolutely not. Look at all these White Wolf games that I have. This is all, for the most part, it's Vampire the Masquerade. I own almost, if not every, Vampire Masquerade Revised Edition book that came out. And here's the thing. I love the game. I think it's fantastic. But it's a pain to try to lug around a backpack full of books to play with your friends. I don't want to do it. When I had more patience for this when I was younger, but the older I get, the less patience I have for oversized books or for books that aren't complete and that you need additional books just to play the thing you want to play. I find it annoying and troublesome. And yet, yes, I've bought a lot of books over the years and I love these games, but this is a fundamental flaw with the way that most games work. When we made Xenoplicity, I wanted to do something different, okay? This book is self-contained. Everything you need to play the game, one book, under 200 pages. And again, it's not like we don't have illustrations. We do. We do have illustrations. There are so many, you've got them pretty much throughout the entire book. Colored illustrations, beautiful illustrations, full page illustrations. And I guess what I'm trying to get at is, there's just a better format. There's a better way. And I think on some level, this comes from a gross misunderstanding of what a tabletop role-playing game is supposed to be. Okay. I'm trying to give people the benefit of the doubt. Why would you make a book that is 500, 600 pages? And again, Shadowrun does this. D&D does this because you don't just need one book, you need 3 books. You need 3 books to play the game. And they're all, about 200 pages, maybe a little bit more. So, you're looking at about 600 pages of material. Why? Why do you need this? I get it. On some level, there's a business aspect of it where you're just trying to sell more books. Okay, that's fine. But I don't want to do that. My mission statement with Xenoplicity was to make a game that was affordable, that was playable, that was fun, and that you could pick up the book and just have everything you need all together, all in one. It's not to say that we won't come out with modules like pre-made adventures and things like that you can buy too, but we don't want that to be the rules. We want that to just be adventures. We just, things like that. Or things that we offer for free. Sure, we'll put some promotional materials out and some free conversions or IP conversions, free to download things. We'll put things like that out, but none of that will be needed to play Xenoplicity. If you want to play this game, all you need is the one book, and that's something that I was very passionate about, because I just dislike this model of tabletop gaming. As much as I like these games, I dislike having all these books out at the table when we're trying to play a game. And when I say that I think this comes down to a misunderstanding of what the game is supposed to be, what the book is supposed to be, if we were talking about a novel, then more pages is better, right? You're engrossed in a story. You don't want it to be over quick. You want it to take a long time to get through. A bigger novel is a better novel if you like what it is. Same goes for a TV show. If I'm watching a TV show and there's only one season out, well, that's not very great. But if there's 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 seasons, awesome. There's more episodes for me to watch with my favorite characters, getting into shenanigans, whatever. But that's the thing. A tabletop role-playing game is not designed to be a novel. This book is not even designed to be used in the game. It's not supposed to be. The point of a tabletop role-playing book is to be a text book. It's to be a book that explains the rules and tells you how to make a character and gives you the setting, if there is one, and it gives you enough feeling and fluff where you can engross yourself into the setting itself to write your own stories, but that's it. In a perfect world, at the table with your friends, you don't even have to open the book. The book doesn't even make an appearance. The book is for the person running the game, or for players when they're needing to look up a rule or just to manage their characters, okay, with the way that the system works, with how it functions. So if the goal is to provide information to the players and to the game master and to function in giving them what they need to play the game and then getting out of the way, then a smaller game book is the better game book. That is the key. It is opposite from what you see getting put out there today, because people keep on talking about how, yeah, my book is 500 pages, or this book is 600 pages, or, kickstart this project. It's so many hundred pages. That's not a selling point, or it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be a selling point. That should be an actual hindrance. That's a red flag. If you need 600 plus pages to explain a set of rules and a setting, then either you don't understand what the hobby's about, you have editing problems with what you're putting in it, or it's arrogance. It's just pure unadulterated arrogance and hubris that you just want to put out a big book because your name's on it. Okay? I'm saying that. I'm throwing that out there. And, you know what? I've been playing tabletop role-playing games for almost 30 years. I think that's the real truth of it. A smaller game book is a better game book if it still gives you what you need. Okay? It's easier to reference. It's easier to look things up. It's easier to use. It's easier to pass around the table. That book right here, this Wire book, when I'm trying to pass this around the table, people have to use both hands to take it from me. There has been times, I'm not even joking, there were times when we were passing this around the table and the person receiving it, they didn't expect it to be that heavy, and then they dropped it on the table and knocked things over on the table and created a mess. Okay? That's happened. That's a hindrance. It's not, it's one of those things where it may look good on a bookshelf sitting there collecting dust because of how big and how beautiful it looks. But why? That's not what it's supposed to be. It's not a book to sit and collect dust. It's a book to use and to play a game with. And so functionality should take precedent, at least in my mind, my opinion. And again, some of these other games out there, I mean, look at all these Star Wars books. To play Star Wars D20, look at all these books that I need if I want to play in any setting, and have all the different armors and weapons and you know, in different classes and things like that. I mean, look at all those books. It's a headache is what it is, and it's a money pit. And I don't regret buying the books in hindsight, but if I don't need to, right, I would prefer to just be able to pick up one book and play everything I need. Another game that's a great example, okay, DCC, okay? Now, this book's a little different, okay? And I'm going to show you what I mean. Sorry, took a little bit. This is the quick start rules for DCC. Look how small that is. Nice, easy, convenient. I love DCC. A great, fun, awesome game. It's just great. And this even comes with a pre-made adventure in the back. So again, you don't need a lot of rules to explain the game. Look how big this book is. I remember first time I bought this book and I brought it home and I was introducing my table to it. I showed them this book. And people at the table busted out laughing, and they were like, yeah, we're not doing that. Like, that's ridiculous. I don't want to look up and read through that many pages to make characters and everything. And I had to explain to them, I was like, you don't. Most of this book is actually tables that are very specific to certain situations. And so once I kind of got them over that hump, they loved it, and we continue to play it. Love DCC. Super fun game. But here's the rub. Here's the problem with this game. All those tables that I just talked about that are very specific, it means that when a cleric goes to use a power or a wizard goes to cast a spell, you have to stop the game and look those tables up. There's a lot of referencing you have to do in DCC. And that's not something I love because it grinds things down to a stop during the game. Every time a wizard goes to cast a spell and they have to roll for the wild magic effect, it's time consuming and it's fun. And you know, once you got into the habit of it, the players enjoy it, but it slows gameplay down. Another game that does this is a game called Dragon Age. It's this game right here. In that game, you roll in these dice, and depending on what you rolled, you might get a ability to use certain power points. And I may not be calling them the right term. It's been a while since I played. But you've got these points that the player gets to spend, and so they get to pick certain things on this table, or they roll for it. But here's the thing. Again, at the table, it sounds good in theory. It's a beautiful book, and I love Dragon Age, the video game. So I was like, yeah, absolutely. Let's try this out. But when you start playing it, And you realize that every time that happens in the game pauses as the player has to then reference a table, reference a chart, look things up, make a decision. You want to talk about a slow-moving game. Xenoplicity does not do this. Now, there are plenty of tables, there are charts in Xenoplicity. It's not that we don't offer those. Most of them are going to be helping a director randomly generate things that they may want to roll for. In Xenoplicity, we offer a random map generator, a random dungeon generator. We even have a random town or a random building generator. If you wanted to, oh, there's a building in front of you. What does that look like? What kind of building is it? Like, you can just roll some dice really quick, and you can generate these things. Okay. So we offer lots of tables. If you get disabled, right, there's rolls you can make for the type of disability you get in the game if you get hit for a lot of damage in one specific part of your body. Sure, we have that. However, there are also rules in the game for, instead of using that chart, for the director to just make something up, or there's a simple penalty that can be applied instead of rolling on those tables. And so what this does is there's a way to keep playing the game where you don't have to look those things up in the moment, okay? You can get through the fight, or the flow of gameplay doesn't stop or doesn't have to slow down just because you get to a point where there is a chance to roll for something. There's ways of getting around it that we have built into the rules, okay? But even if you have to, or you want to, look up something and then roll for it in Xenoplicity, this book is 183 pages. Compared to DCC, it's literally less than half of the size. Easier to look something up in a smaller book than it is a bigger book. And frankly, another point about that is that the rules in Xenoplicity are only 30 pages. You let that sink in. Out of this 183 pages, only 30 pages of it are the rules. So if you have to look something up, you're really flipping through just 30 pages of material as opposed to over 100 pages of something or more in a section of one of these bigger books, right? So I guess what I'm trying to say is the way we formatted the book, it just plays and flows better at the table. And that's been our experience throughout all of the playtesting we've done for it. So that's in a nutshell, kind of like the rant that I wanted to kind of get into here was just the idea of this need, this compulsion to have more books or bigger books. It's silly. It's silly. It's really, it comes from a place of ignorance or hubris. I don't know which. Maybe it's different for different game designers, but I find it to be reprehensible to put out a book that is so big and so bloated, and then especially if it only covers one genre of gameplay. I mean, oh my goodness. If you made a game that covered everything you could possibly play in modern times, in futuristic times, and fantasy times, and it happened to get to 500 or 600 pages, okay, I get that, right? Because you're covering so much. But to have a big, huge book like Zweihander or like DCC or like D&D with 3 different books, and it just to be one thing, just fantasy, I mean, are you kidding me? And meanwhile, Xenoplicity, under 200 pages, everything you want to play. Fantasy, sci-fi, post-apocalypse, modern day, all of that's in here. So, strongly encourage you guys to check out Xenoplicity. It is a lot of fun, and you are going to have the time of your life if you give it a chance. It doesn't play like other games. It plays different, but that's a good thing, right? It brings innovation and something new to a hobby that we all enjoy and that we all love. One more thing to rant about before we go. I've often heard it said, well, I don't want to try a new game system. I'm happy with my D&D. That's the game I started on. That's the game that came first. That's the game we should be playing. That's the only game that matters. I find this to be the strangest of opinions to have about this hobby because it's not an idea that correlates to any other part of life, okay? What do I mean by that? Ford was the first car company to mass produce cars with an assembly line. The majority of people I know don't just drive Fords because Ford was first. And they don't have a Ford now because the first car they ever had was a Ford. There are some. Some people are diehard Ford or Chevy fans. I get it to some extent. But that doesn't mean that they wouldn't drive a Ferrari or they wouldn't drive a Porsche or they wouldn't, you know what I mean? Like they would try other cars. A lot of times that kind of, one or the other is really just kind of like among that type of car, among that class of car. It's kind of like a team sport kind of thing. But on a bigger scale, right? How many people won't buy, they won't buy a Toyota because they've never had a Toyota before? I mean, Toyota's great. I own 2 of them, and they're fantastic cars. But they weren't my first car. And this is what I'm trying to say. Just because D&D was the game you started with doesn't mean that's the only game you should ever play. And look at back here on these shelves. You have all kinds of different games that all have different types of systems. I've got D6, I've got D20, I've got D10, I've got D100. What I'm trying to get at is Fantasy Trip this is the first game I ever played. I started playing that when I was like 12 years old over at a buddy's house. Not that particular box. This is the Legacy Edition that came out a couple years ago. But I had the old, copied black and white rules, that we had Xeroxed off at Kinko's or whatever it was. But anyway, we had the basic rules of the game, and we played it for years. Like that was just such a great game. But I didn't just stop playing tabletop games with that game. I didn't just only stick with the D6 system because that's what I played there. And I didn't even notice the one thing I don't have on here is GURPS. I don't like GURPS. It's overly complicated, and to me it's a headache. But I love the Fantasy Trip. Same guy, Steve Jackson. And what I'm getting at is I didn't just stop with this game and say, well, this game's worked fine. Well, I don't need anything else. No, I tried all these games. I gave different things a chance. I moved from game system to game system because, imagine over 25, 30 years of playing tabletop role-playing games, if I only played one game, how limited would my scope of experience be? It would have hurt me as a game master. It would have hurt me as a player. It would have hurt me as someone who just loves the hobby, because I would have such a limited idea of what gaming could be or what it is in a broader scope. D&D is not our hobby. That is one game out of many great games out there. And so this idea of like, well, I don't want to try something new because it's not what I grew up on or it's not what came first, I just find it to be an odd way to look at the hobby in general. Any of the games that I've bought, I have read the book and been ready to play a first session of them within a week of buying them, okay? And here's the thing. The more games you play, the easier it is to learn a new system, right? Because I've played D6, because I've played D20, because I've played D10 and D100 systems, at this point, when I pick up a new game system, it comes very easy and natural for me to very quickly figure out, okay, how does this game work? Because you can almost, by the wealth of knowledge and information you have already, you can start to see how the developers were thinking or what they were going for very quickly. But if I had only played one game, it would be very hard for me to pick up a second game and get started because I would be so ingrained in just one way of thinking, as opposed to, okay, you can go this way or this way or this way or this way. There's lots of different ways to design a game. And so with Xenoplicity, we also went with a brand new, very innovative way of doing gaming. Our game doesn't work like these other games. It's fun, it's innovative, it's engaging, and it's fast, it's simple. Give it a try, pick up Xenoplicity. I promise you're going to have a time of your life. Play it once and you're going to get hooked, because you're going to find playing this game is just so much easier and so much, it lends itself to so much more fun at the table than what your gaming group is probably used to. And again, I don't say it to boast. I'm saying it because I want to help gamers. I love you guys. Like I said, I love the hobby. So what if I can contribute to it, if I can add to it, if I can make it better than I found it, that's I think what any good gamer wants to do. So anyway, guys, it's good talking to you guys. That's the end of the video. Leave comments below. Tell me what you think. Thanks.